Hello, 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 everyone. My name is Courtnee Danielle, and I'm a singer, songwriter, music producer, audio engineer, and sound designer. I know, it's a lot. We're going to get into it because today we're going to do a vocal breakdown of my new song, Do Not Enter. Ow. The chorus, okay? Specifically the chorus. We're going to get into how I recorded and mixed everything and how I go about my work. So if you can't already tell, I am a Logic lover. This is my beautiful color-coded Logic session. How about we start off with giving her a listen?
Like a fly on the wall, they see everything. They've recorded it all, there's no trespassing. But you tore down the sign that reads, do not enter, do not enter.
She eats. She's good. Oh my god, I love it. Okay, now let's get into the mix. So in case you haven't noticed, the track is super choppy. When I was mixing this, I was really trying to figure out an experimental way to sound unnatural, and I thought the way to go about it was getting rid of all those pauses and breath. Isolated, it is a bit choppy, but I think it really plays well when everything is playing together. So of course I started out with the high pass filter, but then for me, with my personal vocals, what I really like to do is I like to amplify around 200 hertz. I feel like it adds a nice deepness without being muddy, and then I go into the mid-range, really boosting around 1 to 2 kilohertz. Now, compression. So for compression, I kind of use the standard threshold as 15 dB, and that's usually what I like to go for, but sometimes I change it up. So anything above 15 dB threshold means that the gain is reduced and it is therefore compressed. As for ratio is at 8. So this track is quite compressed. We have a bit more dynamic control over the vocals as well. It's a bit softer and it's a bit more dense. The knee is pretty soft at 7 decibels, which kind of allows for it to be a smoother transition for once the compression is added at 15 milliseconds, which is our attack, which is kind of fast, but it gives us a little bit of time for a natural punch in the beginning. And the release is also 100 milliseconds, which is also kind of fast, as that's when the compression is released and the attack begins again. Then I added an Exeter. Okay, so the Exeter really adds more harmonics to higher tones. I specifically focused on the range of 15 kilohertz, and it worked really well, and she's quite beautiful if you do ask me. So when it comes to pedals, I added a chorus and delay. Choruses are really fun because I feel as though they make the sound so much richer, and then when it comes to delay, this one is really trippy and fun. Not the most coy, might I say. One of the most important parts for me, because I sing like this, de-essing. It is imperative. We must have the de-essing. Okay? Okay. For me, I do have a standard for what I use for my voice. It's typically around 70 kilohertz. I don't know why you guys do the math by listening to my voice. Y'all are the audiophiles, not me. What? But anyway, that's what I usually do, and I usually reduce it around 4 dB. And that's what I did here. Now we can... A plane is flying by. Now we can move on to our next audio track, which is the second main vocal. I love stacking vocals to really have 2 different sounds, but pair them together to be one sound. The other one is very unnatural, and this one I want it to be a bit more natural. That was at least the goal. Obviously, it isn't natural. I have a lot of processing going on to it, but the goal is to mimic the naturalness. Let's listen to the track Isolated.
Like a fly on the wall, they see everything. They've recorded it all, there's no trespassing. But you tore down the sign that reads, do not enter, do not enter.
And now together with the other main vocal.
Who cares about the law? Call security. Call the cops, call mom, tell her to punish me. As you tear down
She is so cute. Oh my gosh, I
reads,
love it. Now let's get into the EQ, okay? We have the high pass filter, of course, and then I really emphasize the low to mid range frequencies. When it comes to compression, I went a different route in this since the goal is to be a bit more organic. The compression is a bit lower at 10 dB, so anything above 10 dB gets its gain reduced and compressed. The ratio for this section is actually 2, which allows for a bit more of a natural sound. We have that natural punch, and we have a little less control over the dynamics of this track. So the compression doesn't really come into the picture until 50 milliseconds occurs, which is our attack setting. And our knee is super soft. She is super soft, and our release is at 200 milliseconds, which is a bit more moderate, which allows for a bit more of an organic sound. Like I said before, I was going for a natural sound. So this track is really fun because I added a second compressor just to get a bit more variation. The second compressor, I used vintage Opto, which is not the usual one I've been using for this Logic session. But for this, I added the threshold back to 15 dB. So anything above 15 dB gets compressed and its gain is reduced. I wish I had $1 for how many times I'm going to say that in this video. We are also a bit more compressed at a ratio of 4, and our attack and release are a lot quicker. So to add a bit to the tone of this track, I added a filter, and specifically using the auto filter plugin. As you can see, I really started off with a preset and then I kind of went from there, adding to the fatness and resonance of the sound. And then also adding distortion pre-filter, which I use pre-filter because it adds distortion before any other processing occurs. So it's a bit more subtle, if you will. I think it adds like a nice little twang to everything, but still not too unnatural. And then we have our envelope, which allows us to control a bit more of the dynamics of how that filter is placed on. So it doesn't really start until our attack at 152 milliseconds, and then our release and decay occur at 156 milliseconds. And then we have our de-essing at 7 kilohertz, reducing 4 dB, as usual, for me at least. Now that we've done all that, let's go and look at our backup vocals. So for this one, we are panned from -63 to +63. Just love surrounding the audience with sound, or specifically with vocals. So kind of to get a picture, the main vocals are here, and these backup tracks are right here. So let's give her a listen.
Like a fly on the wall, they see everything. They've reported it all, there's no trespassing. But you tore down the sign that reads, do not.
Rock hard, guys. Wasn't that amazing? Oh my god. Oh my god. So like before, let's check out the EQ. So I went a similar route as before with a high pass filter and then boosting up at the 200 hertz point. And I also amplified around 800 hertz to 1 kilohertz. So really that mid frequency range. But then I added a high shelf filter, which really attenuated about 5 dB at 15 kilohertz. That really allows for the track to have a bit more of a darker tone. Kind of darken the mood a bit. So she is kind of a dark song. So I used the same compressor as before with a threshold of 15 dB and then a ratio of 2. So once again, we have a bit more of a natural sound with a bit of a punch. And then our attack and release come in very quick at 5 milliseconds and 50 milliseconds. With that 50 millisecond release really adding a percussive feel to the vocal track. And then once again, our knee is pretty moderate at 0.6. Fun thing about this track is I actually added a multi-compressor, which is a compressor with multiple bands, which allows the audio engineer to compress different frequencies different. For this specific one, I really added it to amp up the higher tones. And now we have delay. Delay is probably one of my favorite tools to use. This one is pretty subtle. It's a very dry delay at 86 milliseconds. So it's pretty much like this. I don't even know if I can move in 86 milliseconds, but it's super quick and it's not doing too much, but it does give a little oomph to vocal track. I then added a Springbox pedal to get more of a reverberant sound. This track is really cool and unique because I was experimenting and I did a really interesting filter where every 32 bars the audio track sweeps back and forth. For example, we start at -63 and then we move through 32 bars and start at 64. But then there's 2 tracks. So each track slowly crosses over the course of 32 bars. I thought it was really fun to experiment with it, and I think it turned out really great. Then I added the de-esser, which is a lot more different than what I usually do. It's not that different. So around the mid-ranges is where I really removed the de-essing, but if that's what worked for me in this moment, it's what worked. Now, last but not least, the harmonies. Ooh. It's really interesting because I usually actually add low and high tracks, but for this one, the low is really what only resonated with me. So that's what we went for. Let's give them a listen.
You've fallen into the danger zone. You found yourself
glorious, aren't they? I love this part. I love adding different harmonies. Vocal layering and vocal stacking is probably my favorite part about music and mixing music. So the low harmonies are pan -9 to 9. So as the main vocals are right here, our backup vocals are right here, our second backup vocals are right here, and now the low harmonies are right here. So let's get into the EQ. So of course there's a high pass filter because these are vocals. Then I amplified, of course, around 200 hertz and then also 800 hertz. But this one I also amplified around 4 kilohertz, so that was a fun surprise of me. So this compressor is very similar to the last compressor, almost the same, really going for that natural and punchier sound. Now with the multipressor, the goal for this one was to uplift the lower end. One thing about me is I love using a good preset for these multipressors. From the 100 to 200 hertz range, the ratio is set quite higher at 13, and we also have a very short release. For the de-esser, I of course use my standard 7 kilohertz. Okay guys, I think that's everything. Did we get through the whole chorus? Oh my god. So link down below is my website for all my work, pre-save my new up and coming song I Write Your Poetry, and stream this song, Do Not Enter. I like her. If you don't, it's okay, but I think you should at least give it a try. And please, can you like and subscribe? I need help, I need money, I need people to watch. So as always, let's dance it out. So thank you for watching, and please come back soon.